The first and most important thing, as always, on the block of soap is to name the surfaces: labial, the lingual surface, the mesial, and the distal. Always remember that if we're carving the maxillary right canine, we should remember that it is the canine of a person in front of us, not our right, it's his right. So it should be opposite to our side. The mesial is towards the right side and the distal is towards the left. Afterwards, we divide the block of soap longitudinally into two halves, and then we specify the crown length. The crown length for the canine from the edge of the block of soap till the cervical line is 10 millimeters by 4, because our carving is magnified by 4, then it is 40. Then we divide this surface into 3/3. The mesial, and afterwards we should specify the crown, the width of the crown at cervix and at the contact points. At cervix, the mesiodistal diameter of the crown is 5.5. 5.5 by 2 from the midline is 11. Okay. Later on, we should mark the area of the contact points, which is on the table, the mesiodistal diameter of the crown. It is 7.5. The mesial contact area is at the junction of the incisal and middle thirds. The distal contact area is at the middle of the middle. Then we draw the outline of the crown. The cusp tip of this crown is centered mesiodistally, so we draw it directly over the midline. Then we draw the outline of the crown. The mesial outline of the crown, starting from the contact area, is convex. The contact area, as said before, is at the junction of the incisal and middle. Then we connect the mesial cusp edge to the cusp. And afterwards, we connect the distal side of the crown with straight lines, because it's usually either straight or concave. Okay. Now the excess soap should be cut from both sides, as was done with the central incisor. Remember always that the cutting should be directly on the lines that are drawn, in order not to have too much excess or a bulky tooth. After removing the excess above the drawn line, we should remove all excess soap that has stayed in between, because this, if it is left, it will affect the shape of the tooth. The same is done with the other side. Now, moving to the mesial and distal surfaces, we need to draw the buccal and lingual outlines. The buccolingual diameter of the crown at cervix is 7 millimeters by 2 from the midline, then it is 14. Now, the maximum contour of the crown usually is at the junction of the cervical and middle thirds, and or a little bit lower. It is usually 18 millimeters by 2 then 16 towards the buccal and towards the lingual. Then we draw the custip of the canine, which should be a little bit buccal to the midline. Connecting the surfaces together, the buccal outline of the crown is convex all the way. The lingual outline of the crown starts convex at the cingulum area, and then a concavity is drawn to mark the area of the lingual fossa. Same is done on the other side. As was done before, the excess is removed from the labial and lingual surfaces according to the lines that were drawn. Now we start with the roundation step. We remove the corners from the mesiobuccal, distobuccal, mesiolingual, and distolingual line angles. The mesiolingual and distolingual line angles we remove more because the tooth or the crown tapers towards the lingual. Then we draw a line demarcating the area where we should leave the buccal ridge and the lingual ridges. The buccal ridge is in the center from the custip till the cervical line, and it curves towards the mesial. The lingual ridge is in the center. Now, what is left in between should be rounded. As for the mesial outline, as seen from occlusally, should be left convex, whereas the distal side, as seen from occlusally, should be a little bit concave, and the contact area is left as if stretched to meet the first premolar. Now, the two lingual fossae are carved, deepened, and the lingual corners should be rounded, surrounding the cingulum. Usually the lingual fossa is curved using the other end of the Lacron carver after drawing the marginal ridges. After finishing, don't forget to draw the cervical line. The cervical line on the mesial and distal sides curve towards the crown, and on the labial and lingual sides curve towards the root, and it should be continuous all around. As usual, the mesial curvature of the cervical line is more than the distal. The mesial is 2.5 by 4 and the distal curvature of the cervical line is 1.5 by 4. And this is the finished shape of the crown. Remember always that when we look incisally at this tooth, we should know the mesial from the distal sides. The mesial side is convex, whereas the distal side is concave with the contact area stretched.